Hey family, I'm Dr. Jamal Harrison Bryant, and you are locked in with Rolling Out. I'm glad to be a part of it, and I want you to stay connected to the most reliable source of culture and community. I am Pastor Jamal Harrison Bryant from Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Stonecrest, Georgia. It is my honor and my assignment to be able to lead the Target Fast movement, the most effective boycott for Black people in 70 years.
What is the spiritual value of just fasting in general?
Fasting is the principle of self-denial, that you make yourself second, that you're able to feed your spiritual self first, and you're able to negate whatever distractions might be an obstacle to your clarity and your focus.
Economic clarity.
Yeah.
Why must we realign and create economic clarity for our community?
Yeah. Before Dr. King was assassinated, he said that the next step after civil rights was silver rights. He complained to Harry Belafonte privately over dinner and said, "I think I've integrated the Negro into a burning house." What's the point of Black people being able to get to a lunch counter if they don't have money for a cheeseburger? And so when we talk about economic development, I think that that is the final frontier for equity and parity in this country for Black people.
How do individuals who are seeing their friends, who don't understand the value of the boycott, I don't know if even just fasting economically, what should we as a team say to our community, to each other, the brothers and sisters, to encourage them?
That knowledge is power. The most critical tool we have is education. The Bible gave the warning, people die from a lack of knowledge. The court system says that you're still accountable to the laws that you don't know. And so I think when we educate our people, then we empower our people.
Spiritual growth through fasting. How?
Yeah, spiritual growth happens in fasting when you're focusing on a higher being and realizing that you operate out of every gift because of humility. It's not because we're so great, but because God is good. Growing spiritually means that I am not in competition with anybody but my former self. And so you're able to mark your growth based off of new decisions, new choices, and new perspectives.
Growing a spiritual life for many who haven't come to a church. What's the value proposition of being involved in a church?
One of the mistakes that churches make is thinking you can only grow spiritually in church. 92% of what Jesus did was outside of the church. Now 92% of what we do is inside of the church. You really don't know who you are in God till you walk outside. The reality is that at the end of the year, whether you're at high school or in college or even middle school, they have something called commencement. And the irony is that's the conclusion of the education, but is the beginning of the praxis. So our real Christian journey begins at the benediction. It's really easy to be saved in the sanctuary, but how it is that you live that life Monday through Saturday is the real litmus test.
Can you share a personal story when you realized the importance of creating a legacy for the next generation?
Legacy is so important. I remember the first time that I got suspended from school. I was in the 7th grade, and they called my dad to come pick me up from school. My dad leaned me up against the locker, bent down till we were eye to eye, and he said, "What is your name?" I said, "Jamal." He said, "What is your full name?" I said, "Jamal Harrison Bryant." He said, "Every time you go in that class and act like a clown, you're dishonoring your grandfather's name. So you don't just walk in for you. you walk in for every man that was in your family. It's in that moment that I knew I had the weight of not being an individual, but being a legacy.
You know, we're in a moment in time where we can't see as many legacies. You're at a pinnacle. What should we take away from this fast age and Dr. King's legacy?
In an era where there are not too many examples of legacy on its face, there are a whole lot of legacies that are before our eyes. Imagine what we have noticed just in 180 days. You have seen LeBron James create a legacy. You have seen Deion Sanders create a legacy. You've seen LeVar Ball create a legacy. Success as individuals is a black notion. Success as families is a cultural standard that we've got to live up to. John Maxwell said there is no success without a successor. You have not really proven yourself to be successful until you've trained somebody to take your place.
You mentioned black fathers.
Yeah.
What would you say the challenge is for us to acknowledge in those same fathers, that fathers are doing an excellent job, black fathers?
Yeah. I think that we have got to dismiss the media's propaganda about poor black parenting. The reality is black fathers are more engaged in their children's life than white fathers. Black fathers are less prone to commit a domestic violence or sexual abuse than white fathers. Black fathers are more actively engaged in doing homework than white fathers. Black fathers are more involved in extracurricular activities like sports and hobbies than white fathers. But whenever it is that we hear about a black father, psychologically, we envision a black father, and that's not true.
You have fathered a movement at your age. If you were given a commencement speech at Morehouse and you were challenging all of them to actually pick up now, what movement would you like to see the next generation take part in?
70 years ago, Martin Luther King Jr. led the Montgomery bus boycott. 70 years later, I am leading a Target and a Dollar General boycott. I'm not fathering it. I have put it under foster care. I'm taking care of something that doesn't belong to me. With all of the cuts that have happened in the education department, one of the things that has gone missing silently that this generation doesn't even know the previous generation had, and that was band class. When I got to 6th grade, I was given a trumpet. My sister was given a flute. And we had to go and learn it all year, and at the end of the year, we had to go sign our name and give it back to the school, or we were charged for an instrument we didn't even want. This generation does not know instrumentation. They only know remix. So they are not creating music. They're trying to find a way to redefine music. And so I am remixing a legacy from Montgomery to Selma to Nashville to Atlanta that is still now taking the rhythm and the harmony of the pain of our people, trying to etch out a new sound for what America is supposed to look like. And so I am not a conductor as much as I'm a DJ. I'm bringing two different sounds together so a new generation can find how to dance to the beat of a different drum.
When we think of timing, you literally talked about passing the torch.
Yeah.
How important is it for us to understand that torches should be passed to generations sooner than later?
Yeah. It has been said that I am carrying the torch from the previous generation, and regrettably, not too much torch passing has happened for black people. And that's because we've not had the luxury of succession. We've had the reality of assassination. So most of our leaders have not been able to pass the torch because they were snuffed out in their prime. And so as a consequence, you have a younger generation who keeps waiting for a torch to be passed when it's their responsibility to create one. This is the oldest leadership Black America has ever had. And so young people need to be reminded of the fact there is no revolution without young people being on the front line. And the more old people hold the torch, the more they're holding up the line before real change can happen. What we're seeing happening in Africa, in Burkina Faso, what's happening in Zimbabwe, is young black leaders are taking the helm and they're changing the trajectory of the entire continent. And so when young people who are creatives and think outside of the box actually have their turn, I think that we're going to see a shift in history and a shift in culture.
When we talk about shift, 13 trillion, how should we really think and shift our mindset as it relates to our own economic power?
Yeah. Black people have in the orbit of $13 trillion worth of spending power. I shared with you that this is the most effective boycott for black people in 70 years. And I am ashamed because 70 years later, while I'm having to boycott Target, I don't have one national franchise owned by black people that I can redirect them to. Can you imagine how misguided we are that we're celebrating the growth of Costco that does not put money back in our pockets? And so it's so very important that we don't teach financial literacy, we teach financial empowerment. Once we have access, what do we do to it? And we've got to make sure that we invest more than we spend.
The sacrifice and understanding, sacrificing economics with savings. How important is saving money for those individuals who have no idea that saving is really more in style than spending?
Yeah. Saving is an unsexy commodity. The reality is that 85% of black people don't have anybody they can call if in an emergency they need $5,000. As a pastor of a megachurch, I bristle at the reality of how many people don't have insurance. And so when they have death in the family, they got to go through GoFundMe. In just a couple of weeks, we'll be giving out scholarships, and many young people who have access to higher education. And by the grace of God, we're able to do so. But we're doing it in the backdrop of parents who never planned or didn't prepare. And so we've got to recalibrate our thinking around money and know that it is a tool, it is an instrument, and it is a weapon. Wealth provides options. Poverty only leaves you with dictation. In poverty, they got to tell you when to come to work, how many days you got off, when you can have sick leave, when you can have personal time, when you can go to your doctor's office. Wealth helps you to dictate your own schedule and even the schedule of the destiny of your children.
You know, you have sacrificed your time.
Yeah.
Many fear for safety.
Yeah.
It's such a sacrifice. Why give so much when you don't have to?
I am in the midst of a lot of eyes, a lot of focus, a lot of detraction. It's a heavy sacrifice for my wife and for my children. And I want to put in perspective that Dr. King had his house bombed, got stabbed in a department store. Malcolm X found himself under imminent danger and threat and had to have his children and family live under different roofs. The greatest threat that I have to deal with is cyberbullying. And so when you put it all into context, if I get enraged and upset because somebody got a blog, somebody has a comment, it's not the same. And so this is a reasonable portion. I use Malcolm and Martin as a cultural identifier, but I'm a Christian. The ultimate sacrifice was Jesus on the cross. And I'm grateful for whatever time I've had to give up, whatever hours I was robbed of sleep, whatever planes I had to get on and travel, does not compare to the ultimate sacrifice of crucifixion. And so this is an easy affliction when all Christians are directed to die daily.
You know, you have also said Our white Christian brothers and sisters, as we analyze our other megachurch pastors, Pastor Bishop Jakes and others, we are often critical and want our pastors to be poor. That's a true conflict. Can you educate us on why we shouldn't want our pastors, mega pastors, who are teaching to be poor,
Yeah.
and then celebrate other pastors and not ask what they drive or where they live?
Yeah. America has always had two Christianities, two gospels, two versions of Christ. The last vestige of slave religion and Christianity is associating Christianity with poverty. To assume that to be saved is to live in a deficit. We ridicule and deride anybody who excels and does well. James Baldwin calls it survivor's guilt, that you've got to apologize for excelling. You've got to hide your own accomplishments. And it is a part and parcel of the reprogramming of what it is that we've had since the days of slavery. But when you do the appropriate teaching and educating, then you don't have to hide what you drive and where you live and where you vacation, because you've operated as a good shepherd. To say that I am not the exemplar, I'm not the ideal, I am one of many. And when I do well, everybody is supposed to do so. The Bible says the oil flows from the head and goes to the skirts of the robe. So whatever is on the pastor should be on the people. I tell the members of our church, never go to a church where you can tell which car the pastor drives, because there should be 12 other cars just like it in the parking lot. And if it is not, then authentic teaching is not taking place.
We talk about teaching. What skill sets do you think we're missing? Have we overrated or underrated being a plumber, an electrician, as we begin to future-proof our community for the future?
Part of the skill sets that are missing have been held hostage by the black church. The black church has adopted W.E.B. Du Bois and thrown away Booker T. We only celebrate one track, and that's liberal arts education. By 2029, America's going to need 300,000 plumbers, 150 electricians, 150,000 electricians. But we're not pushing anybody to go to technical school, to go to trade school. As a consequence, I would challenge whoever is watching this, whoever subscribed to Rolling Out magazine, go back and watch your service from your church on Sunday, wherever you go, your mosque on Sunday, and see whether your imam or your pastor said one word about Job Corps closing. 9 times out of 10, they didn't. But had the president shut down Howard, Hampton, Morehouse, Florida A&M, Tuskegee, TSU, it would have been a national battle cry, because we would have seen it as an affront. We see the closing of Job Corps as an inconvenience, where every civil rights organization ought to be sounding the alarm. And so I think that it's time for us to put our hands to the plow and realize that those service jobs are one of valor, integrity, and honor, and they should be celebrated accordingly.
When you decide and think about your eulogy, and we clearly, your brother's sitting here not thinking about it, but as everyone lives out their life, thinking about their eulogy, what do you want us to say?
I don't know if a eulogy will be necessary for me. I think they would just have to sing 3 stanzas of Amazing Grace. That's really the soundtrack of my own life. That somebody who failed out of high school, got a GED, had a doctorate degree from Oxford. Amazing Grace. Having never taken the SATs, but the very first person to get into Morehouse with a GED. Amazing Grace. Starting a church with no members and ultimately pastoring the largest black church in America, amazing grace. To be able to stand as a testament that my children are in a small fraternity, sorority that is not reflective across our community. My children represent the fourth generation in my bloodline to go to HBCUs. It's amazing grace. I am exception that I hope becomes God's rule. That I am the third generation in my family to hold a doctorate degree. That I am able to look at 3 generations of men in my family who are college graduates. It's significant, it is an honor, it's humbling, and it is the evidence of grace.
When we look at the movement now, and we're not certain, because there seems to be a question mark, is it going too long? When's it going to stop?
Yeah.
What should we understand that it doesn't need to stop?
Yeah. When people look at the civil rights movement right now and are wearied of it, I'm not sure what they're tired from. This generation of civil rights activists have not had to walk from Selma to Montgomery. They've not had to face fire hoses or barking dogs. They've not been arrested en masse. They have not been hit with billy clubs for trying to get a drink of water. They've not been thrusted to the back for trying to sit in a certain seat in the bus. They've not been spat on for eating in Cheesecake Factory or Red Lobster. They've not been asked in Macy's or Dillard's to hold up clothes and figure out whether they can fit it because they could not try it on. And so I hope that we will get a second win and know that the ancestors are now depending on us. Can you imagine that they were able to start 112 colleges and universities with no internet, with no grants, with no federal funding? And so we should be robbed of every excuse and adopt every reason why it is that we should try to make America great.
What are your favorite memories of being at Morehouse? What did you take away from those moments?
Ooh. My favorite memories from Morehouse, let me say, that's the best 4 years of my life. Best 4 years of my life. It was in Morehouse that I met Coretta Scott King. It was because of Morehouse that I was one of Nelson Mandela's first interns. It's because of Morehouse that I was able to sit with the president of Nigeria. It's because of Morehouse that I was able to get access to Maynard Jackson and to Andrew Young. Because of Morehouse, I was able to see in real time the best and the brightest black men in America. And so out of the class that I came out of at Morehouse, I have a classmate who was a U.S. Senator. Got 2 classmates who are mayors of major cities. Classmates that are presidents of HBCU, city council. Colleagues of mine who are the most effective pastors in the country. So it helped shape me and make me and mold me. After accepting Jesus Christ, Morehouse made me a man in ways that I can't even describe or even define.
Last, a shout out to all those who are getting tired.
Yeah.
For all of those who hadn't decided to join the movement.
Yeah.
The time is now. How would you follow up? The time is now.
I want to give high commendation to those who have been in the struggle without fanfare, been doing the work without a press conference, been moving the community forward without ever getting a commendation or a medal or a trophy. I want to hail black women all over the country who have repeatedly hoisted America on its back. The scripture has you in mind when it says, be not weary in well-doing. We are not machines, we're humans. So take a break, rest, drink your water, practice Pilates, go walk on the belt line. But after you get refreshed, get back on the front line and fight until liberty and justice is for all.